Hey everybody, welcome to day 105, and we are reading the second half of Luke chapter 15. And in this half, we read about the prodigal son, which of course is a very famous story in the Bible, or actually a parable that Jesus is telling. And we see that this son wants his inheritance early, which happens but is unusual. Typically, it was given, of course, after the father passed. And this son, there were two sons, and this son decided he wanted his early. He wanted to go live his life and spend money. And we know that he was greedy and selfish. And as he went off and spent all of the money, a famine ended up coming in the land. And while the famine wasn't his fault, his poor use of money was definitely a downfall for him. And he ended up working on a farm and eating what the pigs were eating. And he realized that if he returned home, he would actually be better off, even if he was a servant on his dad's land. And so we see this young, or at least seemingly young, man return home. And he has this speech all prepared to come tell his dad of why he should get to work the land and work on the farm. And his dad actually comes running to him when he sees him come over the hill, and brings him a special robe and all these other things. They slaughter the fattened calf and all of these different things that would honor the son instead of rebuke him. And then I think we see here this picture of how God sees us, that while we were still sinners, he chased after us. And while we squander our money, or while we are greedy or selfish, or we live in our sin for the season, because, as the saying goes, sin is fun for a season. And I think this man saw the same thing, that all of it was fun until it wasn't. And God waits for us with open arms and runs to us and draws near to us, even when we try to run from him or have a rebellious lifestyle. And then we see this story of the brother of the prodigal son. And this reminds me of the story of Jonah, because what we find in Jonah, we know most of the story about how he's disobedient and has to get thrown, or jumps off the ship and gets swallowed by the big fish, possibly a whale. And he gets spit out at Nineveh and goes and tells the Ninevites what God has asked to tell them, which is to repent. And they do. And typically that's where in Sunday school the story would end. And what we have to remember is at the end of Jonah is sitting outside the city and watching these people repent and do what God wanted them to do. And he's bitter about it. And he lets that bitterness take root. And he's saying the same thing that the brother is saying here in the prodigal son story. I did everything right. And yet you continue to bless these people who were living wicked lives. And I think that's the picture that God's trying to convey, and Jesus is saying in this parable is you can do all the right things, but it's about your heart. And if you're serving and you're going to church and you're doing all the right things and saying all the right things, but your heart is not in that relationship with Jesus, then we're missing the picture, and we can let that bitterness take hold of us. And that's just part of our human nature, to think that we deserve something more. And we have to remember that in the end, none of that is deserved. And so I'm just praying for you that as you read through this story, that you see yourself in these two different people, or that you realize who it is that you want to be whether you want to be the obedient brother, but you also need to recognize that you need that relationship and that heart relationship with the Father. So I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you later. Bye.